The summons ambassador Zara Thorne adjusted her collar one final time as the transport shuttle descended toward the hegemony's capital world. The crimson planet Velcather stretched endlessly below, its surface scarred by millennia of conquest and domination. Somewhere in those sprawling fortress cities, the Zephyrian hegemony planned humanity's final subjugation. The shuttle bay doors hissed open, revealing towering Zephyrian guards with their characteristic crystalline armor and glowing amber eyes. Their leader, General Kozdar, sneered at her modest diplomatic attire. "The legendary human resistance sends us a child?" His voice rumbled like grinding stone. "Where are your warriors? Your fleet commanders?" Zara stepped forward without hesitation, her boots echoing against the metallic deck. "Dead, captured, or fled to the outer systems." She met his gaze directly. "I'm what remains of Earth's diplomatic corps." Kostar's mandibles clicked in what passed for Zephyrian laughter. How fitting. The species that dared defy the hegemony for 3 years sends their scraps to beg for mercy. The escort marched her through corridors lined with trophies from conquered worlds, crystallized remains of species that had opposed the hegemony's expansion. Humans weren't represented yet, but Zara could see the empty alcoves waiting to be. Filled out, they entered the throne chamber, a vast amphitheater where Emperor Vel'Thagoth held court. The ancient ruler dominated the space from his obsidian throne, his 4 arms draped casually over its armrests. Battle-scarred warlords flanked him, representatives from dozens of subjugated species, who now served their conquerors with fanatical devotion. "Approach," the emperor commanded, his voice amplified by organic acoustics that made the chamber itself seem alive. Zara walked the length of the hall alone, ignoring the hostile stares and threatening postures from the assembled warlords. When she reached the designated spot, she neither knelt nor bowed, simply stood with quiet dignity. Emperor Vel'Thagoth leaned forward, studying her with predatory interest. 3 years ago, your species rejected our generous offer of vassalage. You chose war instead of wisdom. Now Earth burns. Your colonies scatter like frightened prey, and your mighty fleets exist only in memory." His eyes glowed brighter. "Tell me, little ambassador, what desperate bargain do you bring to purchase humanity's survival?" The chamber fell silent, except for the rhythmic breathing of 100 different alien species. Warlords shifted expectantly, anticipating the humans' inevitable capitulation. Some had already begun calculating their shares of the coming spoils. Zara remained perfectly still, her expression calm despite standing before the beings responsible for humanity's near extinction. When she finally spoke, her voice carried clearly through the vast space without strain or fear. "Your Majesty assumes I came here to negotiate." The Emperor's primary eyes narrowed, while his secondary ones tracked her subtle movements. Something in her tone suggested this audience wouldn't proceed as anticipated. The challenge Emperor Vel'Thagoth's claws extended slightly from his armrests, scraping against the obsidian with an ominous screech. "If not to negotiate, then why? Does the dying ember of humanity grace my court?" Zara clasped her hands behind her back, a gesture that seemed casual, but positioned her fingers near the small device concealed in her sleeve. "To deliver a message, Your Majesty. One that Earth's survivors felt you should hear personally." General Kostar stepped forward, his weapon systems beginning to glow. "Insolent creature, you stand before the conqueror of 1,000 worlds, and speak in riddles? Peace, Kostar?" The Emperor raised one primary hand while keeping his gaze fixed on Zara. "Let the human speak her final words. I confess myself... Curious about this message, worth crossing half the galaxy to deliver." Murmurs rippled through the assembled warlords. The humans' composure unsettled them. Defeated species typically arrived broken, desperate, pleading for mercy. This one displayed neither fear nor submission, only an unsettling certainty. Threshenak, a reptilian giant whose species had fallen to the hegemony centuries ago, hissed softly. "She shows no proper terror, my emperor. Perhaps we should demonstrate what befalls those who displease you." "Indeed," agreed Warlord Mordun, his insectoid features clicking with anticipation. "My people learned respect quickly after witnessing public executions. Shall I prepare the pain amplifiers?" Emperor Vel'Thagoth studied Zara more intently. In his millennia of conquest, he had seen every possible reaction from defeated enemies. Rage, terror, despair, madness, all familiar expressions that confirmed his dominance. But this human exhibited something different, something that stirred an ancient, almost forgotten sensation: unease. "The message," he commanded. "Speak it now, or I shall have you flayed alive while broadcasting the spectacle to your remaining colonies." Zara nodded slowly, as if his threat carried no more weight than a weather report. "Very well, Your Majesty. The message comes from Admiral Marcus Kane, commanding officer of the Terran Defense Force." She paused, letting the name settle. "Perhaps you remember him? He destroyed your forward base at Kepler 442b. Kosdar snarled at the memory. That base had housed 50,000 troops and served as a crucial staging point for the hegemony's expansion into the Orion Arm. Its destruction had delayed their campaigns by months. "Kane is dead," the Emperor stated flatly. "His ship was destroyed at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. I watched the tactical recordings myself." "Dead, yes," Zara agreed, "but not before he sent one final transmission to Earth's remaining commanders. A simple tactical assessment that changed everything." The Emperor's secondary eyes began tracking movement among his guards, noting their subtle positioning changes. Professional paranoia, honed by centuries of political survival, whispered warnings. "What assessment?" Zara's expression remained neutral, but something shifted in her posture, a subtle straightening that suggested the true conversation was only beginning. Admiral Kane's final words to Earth Command were quite specific. He said the hegemony's greatest weakness wasn't military, it was psychological. "Explain." "You've conquered so many species that you've forgotten how to recognize when one refuses to be conquered." The chamber's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Emperor Vel'Thagoth, claws fully extended now, and several warlords reached for their weapons. The Revelation Emperor Vel'Thagoth rose from his throne, his full height casting an intimidating shadow over the chamber. "Refuse to be conquered? Human, your world burns. Your fleets are scattered debris. Your colonies exist at my sufferance. What delusion sustains this fantasy of defiance?" Zara smiled for the first time since entering the chamber, expression that somehow made the assembled warlords more uncomfortable than her previous stoicism. "Your Majesty, may I ask how many human ships you've destroyed in the past 6 months?" "Irrelevant numbers," Kosdar interjected. "Every encounter ends in their annihilation." "Humor me," Zara pressed. "A rough estimate." The Emperor's tactical mind automatically calculated. "Perhaps 2,000 vessels. Transports, frigates, scattered remnants fleeing your burning worlds." "And how many hegemony ships have you lost in that same period?" "Losses are expected in the number, General." Kosdar as amber eyes flickered. "Perhaps 800. But this proves nothing. Our ships are worth 10 of yours." "Interesting mathematics," Zara mused. 2-to-1 kill ratios against a supposedly defeated enemy using inferior technology. "Tell me, Your Majesty, in your 1,000 previous conquests, did any other species maintain such exchange rates after losing their homeworld?" Emperor Vel'Thagoth felt that ancient unease growing stronger. "What are you implying?" "I'm stating a fact. Humanity isn't retreating, we're adapting. Every engagement teaches us more about your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. We've been fighting you for 3 years, but only now are we beginning to fight you properly." Warlord Threshenak slithered closer, his massive form coiling. "With predatory intent. Enough games, creature. Reveal this message or face the consequences." Zara turned to face him directly. "The message isn't words, Warlord. It's a demonstration." She held up her hand, showing the small device she'd concealed. "This transmitter has been recording everything since I arrived. Visual scans of your throne room, audio patterns of your voices, thermal readings of your guard positions." Security alarms began blaring as the device's signal reached orbit. "All of this data is now being transmitted to 17 different human networks across the galaxy," Zara continued over the noise. "Your security protocols, your force distributions, even the genetic markers of your ruling class all cataloged and distributed." Emperor Velthagoth's rage manifested as a psychic shockwave that cracked several nearby pillars. "You dare turn my own court into an intelligence operation?" "Not just intelligence," Zara replied. "Confirmation. You see, Admiral Kane's final assessment was that the hegemony had grown predictable. You follow the same conquest patterns, use the same intimidation tactics, make the same assumptions about defeated enemies." Kostar raised his weapon, energy crackling along its length. "I will end this insolence immediately." "Wait," the Emperor commanded, his strategic mind racing. "Let her finish. I want to understand what delusion drives the suicide mission." Zara nodded respectfully. "It's quite simple, Your Majesty. Humanity studied every species you've conquered. We analyzed their mistakes, their surrender conditions, their psychological breaking points. We learned what not to do." "And what did you learn?" "That every species you've conquered believed they were fighting for survival. But survival isn't victory, it's merely postponing defeat. Humanity made a different choice." The chamber fell silent except for the continuing alarm signals. "We chose to fight for something worth dying for." The trap Emperor Velthagoth descended. The throne stepped slowly, each footfall echoing like thunder in the now silent chamber. The security alarms had ceased, but the tension remained palpable. Fighting for principles is the luxury of species with alternatives. You have none, don't we? Zara's voice carried a confidence that seemed misplaced given her solitary position among hundreds of hostile aliens. "Your Majesty, how many humans do you estimate remain alive in the galaxy?" "Intelligence suggests perhaps 50 million scattered across the outer systems," General Kostar reported. "Refugees clinging to life in asteroid colonies and derelict stations. 50 million, Zara repeated thoughtfully. "And how many total sentient beings live under hegemony rule?" "Nearly 800 billion across our territories," the Emperor replied, pride evident in his voice. "Fascinating odds. 800 billion citizens of a stable, prosperous empire, against 50 million homeless refugees." She paused. "Tell me, Your Majesty, which group sounds more dangerous to you?" Warlord Mordon chittered nervously. "The refugees are irrelevant. Scattered, broken, without resources or coordination. Are we?" Zara asked. "General Kostar, how many sabotage incidents have you investigated in the past year? Industrial accidents, communications failures, transport malfunctions, all seemingly random, but occurring with increasing frequency across hegemony space?" The general's expression darkened. "Those incidents affect less than 2% of our infrastructure. 2% of 800 billion citizens is still 16 million people affected," Zara calculated aloud. "And those incidents are accelerating. Strange how random events follow such predictable patterns." Emperor Velthagoth's tactical mind began connecting dots he'd previously dismissed as coincidence. The timing of certain equipment failures, the specific nature of communication disruptions, the way certain accidents cascaded through connected systems. "You're suggesting coordination," he said slowly. I'm stating fact. Those 50 million scattered refugees include engineers who built your captured factories, programmers who designed your communication networks, technicians who maintained your conquered infrastructure. Zara's smile returned. When you absorb a species, Your Majesty, you also absorb their knowledge of your systems. The chamber erupted in angry voices as warlords shouted denials and accusations. Emperor Vel'Thagoth raised all four arms for silence, his mind racing. Through implications. Even if true, he said finally, sabotage cannot defeat the hegemony. You lack the numbers, the firepower, the coordination for meaningful resistance. You're absolutely right, Zara agreed. Which brings us to the actual message I came to deliver. She reached into her diplomatic pouch, withdrawing a small crystalline data core. Several guards raised weapons, but the Emperor gestured for restraint. This contains the complete records of Operation Lazarus, she announced. Humanity's real response to the hegemony invasion. Another intelligence-gathering scheme? Kosdar sneered. Not gathering planting. For 3 years, every refugee, ship you captured, every defeated colony you occupied, every scattered survivor you relocated was precisely positioned according to our strategic plan. The Emperor's primary eyes widened as understanding dawned. You're claiming deliberate placement of your people throughout our territory? Not claiming, confirming. 50 million humans aren't randomly scattered, Your Majesty. They're strategically distributed across every critical system in your empire. Communication hubs, manufacturing centers, fleet bases, administrative capitals. She held up the data core. This contains their exact locations and assigned targets. Impossible. Threshonak hissed. Our security protocols were designed to detect external threats, Zara interrupted, not internal ones. Especially not internal threats you helped create by relocating our people exactly where we needed them. Emperor Vel'Thagoth felt the ancient unease transform into something more familiar, the chill of recognition that he faced a worthy opponent. What do you want? He asked quietly. Nothing from you, Your Majesty. I came here to deliver a final courtesy advance notice of what's about to begin. The message Emperor Vel'Thagoth stared at the data core in Zara's hand, his millennium of tactical experience screaming warnings. You expect me to believe 50 million humans could coordinate a galaxy-spanning operation without detection? Detection. By whom? Zara asked. Your intelligence services look for military buildups, fleet movements, weapon stockpiles. They don't monitor refugee camps for subtle communication patterns or track maintenance workers' shift schedules. General Kosdar activated his tactical display, projecting a holographic map of hegemony space. Even if coordination were possible, what could scattered civilians accomplish against military installations? Zara studied the map with professional interest. General, what percentage of your critical infrastructure requires daily maintenance by technical personnel? That's classified information. Approximately 97%, she answered anyway. Communication arrays need constant calibration. Power systems require regular adjustment. Life support demands continuous monitoring. Transportation. Networks depend on precise timing. Her voice remained conversational, as if discussing weather. Now imagine if all those maintenance workers stopped cooperating simultaneously. The holographic display flickered as Kosdar's claws tightened involuntarily around his control interface. Furthermore, Zara continued, your empire's strength lies in coordination. Instant communication between sectors, rapid troop deployments, centralized resource distribution. But coordination requires trust. What happens when you can't trust your own infrastructure? Emperor Vel'Thagoth's secondary eyes tracked his warlords' increasing agitation. They were beginning to understand the implications, and their fear was becoming palpable. You're describing system-wide sabotage, he said. Such coordination would require impossible precision. Would it? Zara placed the data core on the floor and stepped back. Your Majesty, what time is it? The question seemed absurd, but the Emperor checked his chronometer automatically. 1400 hours, 17 minutes, 43 seconds, local time. In exactly 77 seconds, at precisely 1401 local time, every human in hegemony space will receive the same 7-word message. Zara's composure finally cracked, revealing something that made several warlords step backward. The last human ship never left alone. What does that mean? Threshnak demanded. It means you were correct, General Kostar. The last human refugee ship did contain our final survivors. Zara's smile held no warmth now. But it wasn't fleeing. It was confirming that every human in your empire was positioned and ready. The Emperor's chronometer showed 59 seconds. Remaining, ready for what? To answer a simple question. What happens when 50 million people decide to stop pretending they're defeated? Zara's voice carried over growing alarm sounds from various monitoring stations. When maintenance workers introduce random errors into critical systems, when transport coordinators develop sudden scheduling confusion, when communication technicians experience mysterious equipment malfunctions. 47 seconds. When accountants discover computational irregularities in resource allocation, when medical personnel report supply shortages, when administrative staff encounter unexpected database corruption. 33 seconds. When every human in your empire simultaneously remembers they're not refugees or slaves or conquered civilians. They're a distributed military force that's been studying your weaknesses from the inside for 3 years. 21 seconds. Emergency alerts began cascading across monitoring displays throughout the chamber. Reports of system anomalies from across the empire flooded in simultaneously. 15 seconds. The beauty of our plan, Zara said as chaos erupted around them, is that you helped us implement it. Every relocation order, every work assignment, every security clearance you granted to harmless human refugees was exactly what we needed. 5 seconds. Emperor Vel the Goth watched his empire's communication network begin fragmenting in real time. Transportation systems developing systematic delays, and manufacturing centers reporting coordinated equipment failures across multiple sectors. 0. The last human ship never left alone, Zara repeated quietly as the lights flickered and emergency systems activated throughout the throne chamber. It left with confirmation that humanity's real fleet was already here. Outside, across 800 worlds, 50 million humans smiled in perfect synchronization.